Richard, you've been in the coaching industry for almost 2 decades. So in that time, how's the industry changed from, 17 years ago to now?
I think the biggest thing is probably going to be social media, or not even social media, but just technology. When I had first started, we would there was no online coaching. We would go into gyms. There was the only really way that you could do personal training. There's so many more avenues now of coaching, I think. But again, I think that's going to be the biggest thing that I've seen change is there's a lot more of a shift now from the whole model of going in and working as an employee, as a gym instructor, where you're just walking around the gym helping people, and then doing personal training sessions around that, which is basically the only model. And then I think nowadays, you've got obviously still the commercial gym models. Some people have their own facilities, and then obviously online training is very quickly starting to take over the fitness industry. So I think that's one of the biggest changes that is happening, and it's especially in the last 5 years, the growth of it, online training and just not actually personal training but still coaching people has just gone through the roof.
In terms of like philosophy of training, even like pushing the marketing component away, do you feel like the philosophy and the fundamentals of how people, in particular coaches, 20 years ago, how that's changed over the last 2 decades? Or do you think it's quite similar?
It has. I think we've all gone through periods where when I had first gone in, it was a lot about, we'd have the chicken and rice or the fish and rice cake diet that you saw on YouTube. And like those things were around, and that's how people ate.
I was never one of those guys.
You were never one of those guys? I was, unfortunately. But yeah, so I think, we've all gone through the hormones are more important than calories, and we have to eat. And, in terms of training as well, right? Like, the perfect set and rep schemes that we look at and things. And so I think as science has evolved, the way that we're training is a little bit, well, it's obviously more advanced now. But yeah, I think, what we were doing back in the day, I kind of look back now and cringe at. But I think, if we were to fast forward from here 15 or 20 years, I would expect the same thing in 20 years. I'm going to be talking about what I'm doing right now, and I'll probably cringe at that just as much as I would have.
What do you reckon you'd be doing now that you'll cringe at in 20 years' time?
Probably the hours worked. I think
in person.
Yeah, I think I think the scope of the fitness industry and personal training is going to change quite a lot in that. I think, the one-on-one personal training, I think it will still exist, but I think it will exist far less now. I think, but yeah, in terms of the actual training, I have no idea, but there's going to be something in diet. We'll have more advances in training and diet, how to maybe more efficiently get results, or strategies to use that are going to help clients a lot more than what we currently have. And I think, I don't know what it's going to be, but I think, there's definitely going to be things that in 20 years time, like we are now looking back, 15, 20 years ago, there's going to be things that are going, well, what the fuck were we trying to do that for? So
and once you introduce VR, AI, all this sort of stuff, even in 10 years, 5 years, it's going to be interesting.
Oh yeah, that's going to change the whole scope. And it already has. Like if you're looking at what we do now compared to what we did, again, like I was just saying previously, like if we look at how the scope of the industry and coaching is now compared to what it was 15 years ago, like that's some like futuristic shit for if you were to look at it right now 15 years ago and go, this is what it's going to be like in 15 years. And you'd be like, there's no way. So yeah, I think like with AI and stuff, it's just going to continue to change and I guess evolve in an even faster rate than it has ever before.
Definitely. And I think for a very large percentage of PTs, they're going to become redundant with time. The lower to mid tier level as technology gets better. I personally feel like a lot of industries, not just PT, the experts then who learn to deal and utilize tech, they'll be able to apply at scale and use tech like AI and that to get their message more effectively. Whereas I find that mid to lower tier coaches and that they're going to struggle.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things that I'm really big on right now with people is talking about how well you can communicate with the person and how well, because AIs, I think, will probably always struggle to be able to replicate that side of things, like the emotional side of things and helping people. So I think for a lot of trainers that are, trying to just go online and it's basically just, here's a diet, here's a training program, they're going to really struggle. But I think, a lot of the coaches that are personable and really authentic, I think, they should be fine. So I think regardless of what level they're at, I think, again, it'll be the personable trainers that are going to have the most success over the long term. And also, again, like you said, like the marketing, but the sort of more authoritative trainers are gonna be a lot better.
Yeah, it's even if you go back, 17 years ago when we all started, we were getting in this space. It's amazing how many more women are in the gym and lifting now. I think that's almost one of the things that's the biggest change. Like there's tech, there's social media, there's philosophy, there's recovery, all these sort of things. But it's amazing. Like 17 years ago, not that many women were dedicated to lifting weights. When do you find that shift happen?
That's probably one of the best things that's ever come out of social media, I think. I'm just trying to think back now. 10 years ago, even, I still remember majority of my female clients, skinny was the goal. Like you'd see the Lorna Jane motivational T-shirts, or I don't know if it was Lorna Jane, but strong and skinny and stuff like things like that, right? And it has changed now to women are lifting weight. They're getting stronger, they're getting more athletic, which I think is amazing because it's so much better, not only just for confidence and things like that, but also just general health markers like having more muscle mass is directly correlated to longevity of life. So I think that's been a huge plus in the fitness industry, and I think that's happened a lot to do with, I'm not sure if social media, I think would be a big had a big push in that. I'm not sure if it's the only thing, but regardless of what it is, that I'm glad it happened because it's no longer like I said, a quote that I love using is don't destroy the body that you hate, build the body that you love. So I think that is a perfect analogy for women's training over the last 15 years.
Yeah, it was insane. Like in those times, I think it's been more the last 5 to 7 years. There's been that big shift, but women would all think, I'll get fucking bulky if I lift weights. It's like, you're not going to get bulky. Like guys legitimately eat more than you. We've got more testosterone. We lift more than you, and we still can't. Yeah. We still struggle putting on the mass that we want. So I think, like what you said, like the fact that they're in the gym and lifting weights now and not thinking healthy is doing cardio. It's like healthy is, it's holistic, but lifting weights is part of that process. With coaches, you've obviously dealt with a lot of coaches. What are some success strategies as a coach that you found most effective?
For general population athletes?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose it goes for all of them, but I think just focusing less on the outcomes and focusing more on the processes that get you to the outcomes, I think is the key. And I always say this, everything else kind of stems from that, because you get the whole destination happiness thing, and those are the sort of issues sometimes that clients can that's what can hurt them is it's so far away until I get to this result, and motivation always goes up and down and things like that. But I think if you can create more wins for clients and you can get them really motivated and dialed in on their daily goals, which could be anything from how much water they're drinking, their food intake, their training, their strength training in the gym, their activity, their steps, or whatever it might be, right? Different for everybody. But I think, finding ways to make that an enjoyable process and then focus on that rather than, I've got to lose 15 kilos, but it's going to take me, 2 years to get that, or a year to get that, or whatever it is, and just really dialing in on those goals and allowing them to get more wins, because when they get more wins, they get happy, they get excited, they get motivated, and then you can sort of ride the short-term goals all the way to they focus on those, and they just end up at the outcome, and they're enjoying the process of getting there.
Definitely. And what about like some of the nuance that you've discovered? That's good sort of fundamental advice, but you've been doing it for a long time. What's some of the little nuance tips that you would have that most coaches, you look at them and they, even if they're generally doing things pretty well, what's the stuff that gives you that little bit more secret sauce?
A little bit more secret sauce. I have a form that I use for people, especially people that are brand new to the gym, which is, it's by no means new, and they use this in a lot of sporting clubs, which is an 100-point tracker. And basically we have like drinking, all those things that I just previously said, water, steps, training, whatever it is, and I allocate points to each one of those goals. And I'll say, all right, we're going to turn everything that we do into a game. So we're going to say 100 points. You win the day if you get 100 points. And every single daily goal, there could be enough on there to get 400 points. And obviously you're not going to do all of those, but we set it up so it's like, all right, you just have to get 100 points a day. And then we just kind of gamify training for people. And then rather than it's like I have to do this, like it's like, all right, sweet. What am I going to do to get 100 points today? So the 100-point tracker is something that I found is amazing for general population clients, and it's so easy to do.
Applying for like increasing engagement, and retention, yeah,
absolutely. And it's just like for a lot of people, you just have to gamify. Like I love that word because it's like it's a lot of trainers will talk about like, oh, have a challenging environment for you want to challenge them, and then when they think that, they just think in the gym. Right. And they think, I'm going to challenge him. We're going to make him try to get stronger every week, which is amazing. But most of the results for these people don't come in the gym. Like most of them come in there, the rest of the day. So if you can find a way to gamify that, then, everything they do every day, like all those daily habits that lead to their goals becomes a game for them that they're trying to win. And, people are competitive. So if they can do that, and you try to win 6 out of the 7 days a week, you're going to be on a pretty good track. So I think that's something that I implemented a couple years ago with specific clients, and the success rate of that's been amazing. Wish I did that earlier.
Yeah, and definitely not being too, like so many of us, myself included, I'm very addictive personality, all or nothing. Yeah. And a lot of people, and many of your clients, no doubt, would be similar, and to have that self-compassion that you could do 5 days right and fuck up 2, and it's fine. Yeah. You just like, don't fuck 2 days up in a row.
Yeah.
Just get back on track, and like overall over time it will even out.
Yeah.
With how important is tracking? Do you find people can still be pretty successful on a long-term basis without tracking?
In nutrition? Or just everything?
Everything.
Yeah, you can. But I think there is an element, like people that are experienced have a better understanding of what, like when they're more educated, they have a better understanding of what they can do when they can't do it, right? So I'm not a fan of intuitive eating because, like, for me, if I ate intuitively, I would be 400 kilos overweight. But I also I like to call it educated eating. So I know, like, roughly I know how much protein is roughly in each food, not the perfect numbers, but I know enough that I know when I'm having too many calories, not enough calories, where my protein's at. And I think for people like that, I think tracking for just a lifestyle, absolutely not. But I think education is really key, really a big key on that. And the more educated you can get somebody, the less important tracking is. Obviously tracking is, right, there's no way around it. Tracking is always going to be the best way. But for people that don't want to do it, you can, look at things like for nutrition, for example. Like I might start people, and I actually put up a post on this on Instagram yesterday or the day before. It was about teaching people how to eat before teaching them how much to eat, which is that whole educational point where it's like, okay, rather than not having a great understanding and playing calorie Tetris basically, and just trying to fit foods that you love in, which is okay, I guess. But if they have an understanding of, hey, vegetables and fruits are going to be really good for XYZ, and protein's going to make me feel fuller, so I might snack less. And people that have a better understanding of that generally do better without tracking, and it's just more educated. Same thing with movement, same thing with training and things like that. Like they have that better understanding of or maybe more self-awareness of what they're actually doing. So I do, with brand new clients, I do think it's important to educate them and maybe use, who's guideline tracking, even if it's not like pedantic, I'll put this into my fitness pal. Could be, food portion sizes or making sure you're having fruit or enough fruit or vegetables in the day, or, have meat at the start of each meal. But I think, if you have a less strict element of tracking at the start, generally it builds on really good habits, so that in the future you'll have the self-awareness that you don't need to track, and you can still and you can live a really, really healthy lifestyle. But if you're looking at like more so, and when I say elite athletes, I don't mean like competitive bodybuilders or competitive sports athletes, but like people that want to get to the 1% of themselves, generally you'll need to track.
Definitely. And that's I think the nuance with actual professional or actual proper athletes versus someone who just wants general pop lifestyle advice. And I think what you said, you nailed it on the head in terms of where I sort of think as well. It's more they need to have that fundamental education foundation, which I think it's good to track at the beginning, at least to understand the framework of how things work, get educated. And then once you've actually understood roughly how you can play with it, then just apply those principles. With your career, obviously we all through growth, through pain, failures, we learn a lot. What are a couple of the key failures or things you've gone through as a coach that have allowed you to develop?
So I've had a few clients that I've had amazing results with that had left over the years, and for a long time it was like, well, I got the result and they left, so I've kind of put the blame on them a little bit. And I think the more so I'm deep diving into and this is why when I talk about like great coaches have like they can get results, but they also have retention. So I sort of look at it and go, oh, the service might not have been quite as good, or the way, we got a result, but they may have really hated the process and they don't want to keep going with it. So one of the big things for me was looking just at retention in that regard, whereas I think I was so focused on like, as long as I get the result, then nothing else matters. And I think that was a really big roadblock for me. I was too hyper focused on that. And that could have been a little bit of ego coaching. It definitely was a little bit of ego coaching. But I think it's one of those things where it's like, now I'm looking at it and going, okay, one of my mentors told me a really good quote that I sort of apply into general population training now. And he said, the most important thing about youth sport isn't always that they win the grand final, but they come back and play the next season. And that to me, like, really stuck with me. Because I'm like, okay, cool. So if I have a client and we get a result, but then they quit and they hate it, how well have I done my job for the rest of their life? So for me, it's like, all right, I want to communicate well. I want to make sure the service is really good. I want to make sure they're enjoying it. And I think, regardless, for some people, maybe they wouldn't call it a failure if the client got the result. But for me, the fact that they didn't continue on a personal level was a failure to me as a coach. And I think that was a huge roadblock for me that I was able to sort of work on, and I'm still working on it. But yeah, I think that one was probably the biggest one for me. I'm trying to think other things that I've had. I've had, like, I have the subscription training right now, which has been absolutely amazing. I know I tried a few other subscription programs that just, I was like, cool, this is going to be amazing. And then I realized, 4 people bought it in the month, and I was like, man. And then just also just working out now, like how important communicating the importance of things is. And I think that's another big one that I'm still working on that pretty heavily at the moment. It's just working on, making sure that even though I know what I'm saying is correct, but also make sure that they're bought into it as well. And in the past, I've had a bunch of, I guess you could call failures on that, because, I know what to do and I know they know what to do, but I just wasn't saying the message properly to them. So that's been a really big key that I've worked on with some success, but I think there's still a long way to go for me on that one.
It's always a work in progress. Yeah, because I feel you from what we said, definitely that there's an ego aspect you can have early in your career, that what you do actually it's an effective way. If you follow your plan, you follow your roadmap, you will get there. But the problem is how many people get burnt in that process. And the thing is, like what you said, it's focusing not on your ego, and it's the really good coaches don't just have their one way of doing it. You know, like a Phil Jackson, or how he treated Michael Jordan was different to how he treated Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
How he treated Kobe Bryant it's different. The amazing coaches can go, well, I want to get you from there to here and keep you going. Yeah. Not just it's my way or the highway, and you have to just buy into that and have. And as I said, I think there's definitely ego, but also as a coach, you want them to get the result as well.
Yeah.
As well. And if they fall out of your system, it's a hit to the ego, but also you can go, fuck, this person's going to go all the way back to where they were, and they're going to go backwards. So it's that double punch in the liver. And yeah, it's funny you said, like, essentially it's almost developing more empathy and working on communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, the secret sauce. But when we're talking red flags for coaches, or people, general public looking at coaches and things they should and shouldn't look for, what are the couple of the red flags that if you're a Gen Pop individual looking to get coaching that they should be aware of?
I think there's about 100, and I think they'll be different for
Give me top five.
Every coach is going to have different ones of these, but on a personal level, I could just tell you a couple of my icks. I love that word as well now. I heard someone say ick, and I was like, that was a phenomenal word. I'm going to use that every chance I get.
I'm too old for that.
Yeah. It's like my one cool hip word.
Yeah, I got none.
Yeah, the kids are like, don't say that. I have a huge issue with coaches that claim clients. That just like drives me bananas. When coaches will be like, my client did this, or my client, did that. And it's almost like they take credit for the work. And a quote that I will say, you will hear me say this 20 times a week, is, the best coaches are blame takers and credit makers. So I think a red flag for me is when coaches are trying to claim and like make the spotlight about themselves. So like if you look on my social media, anytime I post a client result, it's just going to be me being proud of that person, because they're the ones that did the work. I just kind of maybe made a guide for them, and then so I think that's a red flag for me. People might disagree with that one, but I think that one is a huge red flag for me. Another one would be, and I used to be guilty of this, and it's something that I am fiercely against now, and I'm borderline ashamed of doing, is trying to tear down other coaches at the expense of your own
brand,
your own brand. Yeah. And it's like, I can't stand that. And I've done it before, and it's almost sickening to me nowadays. But yeah, anybody that does that, I can't stand that.
What about for red flags for coaches when they're taking on clients?
So one of mine is, so if you are wanting to be coached by me, please don't ever do this. Don't ever come on super strong and be like, whatever it takes, I'm going to do absolutely anything to get the result. Because more often than not, that
sounds like saying old messenger.
Yeah, it might have been actually. And again, more often than not, that's the first sign of a all or nothing mentality. Which, I mean, again, I'm not. It's something that I've had as well, but I think it's that worries me a little bit. Another one is people that come on and they want to talk about performance enhancing drugs before they want to talk about training and nutrition, especially people that are have no business around performance enhancing drugs, and that's.
And what category of people would you say that would be?
What do you mean?
Like, what sort of demographic of people would you say we should have no business touching performance enhancing?
People under 25.
Yeah.
But also, and it's male and female too, right? It's not just labeled down to males. But also just people that, are looking for the outcome straight off the bat, and it's like they're trying to skip out on hard work,
shortcut the process.
So, and I think you can't do that. There's no way. It's not how physiology works, unfortunately. It is like you can maybe do that, but without the fundamentals in place, nothing's going to work. So I think there's some red flags that I tend to look at. I actually think there's probably a lot more. I could, if you.
It's funny because like a few of those things that you said, because obviously me being with my chiro business, but also doing things like jiu-jitsu, and you see the same traits.
It's personality traits,
It's personality
right?
traits, and people get there. It's the same thing with my chiro clients. I've been doing that for 14 years. The people come in, they're like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I'm committed. And I've always, in my early days, I think, oh, this person's going to be great. And then they just get a bit of a result, boom, then they disappear and you go, what the fuck? And someone who is more like skeptical and somebody you think, oh, this person's not going to get on board, then they're still with you years later. So it's like, they've got this all or nothing, like just, and same thing. More so, I see that with jiu-jitsu as well. I've been doing that for 10 years now, and you hear guys, and my mate who's got the jiu-jitsu squad's the same thing. You guys get excited. They're like, oh, I want to train 5 times a week. I want to do competitions. I want to do this. I want to get my black belt. It's like, man, you haven't even had a roll yet. Yeah. Like that shit's like, it takes 10 years consistent to get you.
And that's what I was talking about earlier, right? About the only looking at outcomes, right? Like if you, and that's why as a coach, it's so important. And I think this is the same in any industry is, you know, strip it back down and look at daily behaviors. Like I could imagine in chiro, like, correct me if I'm wrong here, right? But like, you know, rather than saying, you know, oh, I'm going to do absolutely everything. I want to come in here and I want to be here, and like then get mad in 2 weeks when they don't have the result, you know, by paying all this money or whatever. But it's like, okay, it's like, it's what you're going to do outside. I can put you back to like factory settings, but it's what you do outside of here as well. And you know, a lot of people, it's almost like I'm just paying to be fixed, where it's like, no, you're getting the education to learn how to help yourself get fixed. And I think, you know, that would, I would imagine, would be a huge similarity between my coaching and your coaching.
Absolutely. And it's just not taking accountability. It's almost like I come and see Richard and I'm going to be shredded and in shape, or they're going to come see me, I'm just going to be fixed. Just the fact that I'm just there and doing a session with you, that's enough. It's like, no, that's part of the process. Like, it's an important part of the process, but it's just part of the process. Like with me and chiro, it's a big part of what I got to educate people. It's like, it's not just, you got to come in and get your back. So it's like, man, if you're sitting all day and you got a shit lifestyle, you got high stress, you don't sleep well. Most people sit all day. Most people have high stress. Most people don't sleep well. And then that's just like some, I guess the very common things. Then you go into like previous accidents, trauma, inflammatory issues, all these sort of things. And that's just a whole lifestyle base of like micro and macro trauma and stresses that, like, you know, physical, chemical, mental stresses that cause the problems, which are constantly dynamic. They don't change. And I use the fitness analogy to people all the time. It's like, you know, I call it like a 3-legged stool of getting results. Obviously, the first leg is about identifying what causes the problems and being able to like audit your own life. And some things you can change, some things, it is what it is. You can't change. The middle leg's obviously addressing the spinal adjustments that we do, get the nervous system functioning better. And then the last leg is more, you know, doing the exercises and the work to support all the adjustments and perform better. And you can't just do one and think you're all going to be sorted. Like initially, I always focus more on the awareness of what causes the problems, the education, how you can modify those variables, and then get them understanding chiropractic, because that's very important, because most people just have got no idea. And if people don't, like with what you do, if people don't understand what they're actually doing, they're going to get shit results, retention stuffed. So you got to put that work in at the front end to go educate properly, and then education's like an ongoing. I think something we all make the mistake of, and no doubt you've probably jumped in this category as well, we make assumptions that because we've explained something to someone, that they get it. And they don't.
You're never educating until you're understood.
Yeah. And it takes about 5 to 7 times of generally saying the same thing. And I find you have to word it differently. If it's all just like right brain or left brain, whether it's using emotion, whether it's using stories, whether it's using, you know, cognitive, because some people you just say cognitive fact and it just doesn't click for them. And some people need a story for, oh shit, that actually makes sense. And they can understand the process. So very similar issues. And I mention to my clients, it's like, you don't go to someone like yourself who's like the top trainer in Perth, and then go, all right, I'm getting training with Richard, I'm just going to do his training and I'm just going to fucking eat KFC on the way home, get on the piss on the weekend, and, you know, do whatever I want, sleep shit house, and then blame him that you didn't get the results. Like, no, man, that's part of the picture. It's all about, one, you got to take responsibility for these other things. Some people, I think, don't understand that these things play as much of a role as they do, but the majority of people just don't want to take accountability. Yeah. Which I feel
100% agree. Yeah.
When should you cut a client?
When should you cut a client? Ooh, I actually had this conversation with someone the other day. It's a hard one to answer because it's so context dependent. I think there's a large demographic of people that want to, like, say for example, like you have a client that's not following a plan. We have a couple issues here. It could be that they're not following the plan because it's what you just said before about how it's like, well, as long as I'm paying, I should be getting a result and whatnot. But you also have situations now, and this is something that I've worked really hard on and I'm still continuing to work really hard on, is going, maybe I haven't explained this in a way, or I haven't communicated the importance of this enough in a way, or made it like the process of this they haven't bought into, or they haven't bought into me, and they don't have enough trust in me and things like that, right? So it's really hard to make like a call on that, because I think, there's some people that I will always tell coaches, like, take the blame of why they're not doing this. And I think some coaches have a tendency to, like you said earlier about like everybody has to fit my mold. Some coaches have a tendency to like just cut clients off when they don't fit their mold, or be less enthusiastic with them because they're like, well, if they're not giving me that energy, I'm not going to give it back to them. Whereas the issue could potentially be just how well you're communicating the plan and creating buy-in. So I think, if I try not, if somebody is showing zero interest, I may say to them like, look, I want the best for you, and maybe we're not working well together.
Do you have some guardrails that you put in place that after a certain time, or if there's certain behaviors after a certain time,
I think
then you know what I mean? It's very person dependent.
Yeah.
And some people have, I find as well, you get, people there, they generally try, and they could have just crazy lifestyle with family and their career and that. And you can see that they're generally making an effort, and there's other people.
You can tell, right? I think if I were to give you like, because I think that's such a gray answer, if I have to give you a more black and white answer, I would probably look at people that don't reply their check-ins or don't show up. I think that's probably the most black and white answer. It's like, if I'm here to help you and you're not turning up, or you're not bothering to send me in information, I think you have a pretty strong case for that, because you're actually, I don't look at it as like, I'm not going to coach you anymore. Like, I look at it in the form as, you're probably wasting your money, and maybe right now, like, I'm not doubting that you want the results, but I'm also saying that maybe right now is not the best time for you. Mm-hmm. You may have things going on where you're not able to get the full, the most out of the coaching that you could. So I think those sort of people, I think I would maybe look at telling them that, but I wouldn't say like cutting them. I always feel really bad saying that. But yeah, like I think, if people aren't,
free them.
You free them. Yeah,
free them to the world.
Just tell them they're wasting their money.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah.
Well, essentially, it's your time.
Yeah.
And then their money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
however,
for me, I'll look at it and be like, look, if you're not, whatever the reason is, right? It could be you were busy with something. I don't know. That's that's your lifestyle, and that's your issue. But like, if you're not able to allow me to help you get the best result, then it might be time to go, okay, well, there is an issue somewhere, and I don't want to see you waste your money. So I might, maybe have a look at coming back in the near future, just when you have things a little bit more settled or whatnot. So I generally do it like that. I don't generally be like, nah, fuck this person. Like, they're not
exactly right. Yeah. I think you've always got to keep the door open.
Oh yeah,
with clients,
100%.
And I think a lot of people screw up, and they get emotionally attached. And once someone leaves, it's their own insecurity. I think that kicks out, and you go, look, you never know what's going on in someone's life. We've all had it that, you get people just drop the ball and they're a shit show. You get people who they have great intentions, and you don't know what the fuck's going on. They could have some crazy shit that's going on, and it's not, as you said, it's not the right time.
Yeah.
And whether it's financial, whether it's family, whatever it is. And like, I think leaving the door open, particularly for nice people, You know, if someone's just disrespectful, it's different.
Yeah.
And you just can't stand them. I mean, but if someone's like generally, you can tell they're a good person, and it's not the right time. Even if their behavior isn't great, it's just having clear expectations at the start of the relationship and be willing to have those harder conversations, but doing them like with empathy and not as a prick.
And it's so interesting, right? Like I'll tell you a story on this one. Is like the whole thing that you just said about like the coaching insecurity stuff, because I cannot, this has happened more times than I wish it has, and it would probably surprise you how many times this actually happens. But like I have, even just recently, I took on like 10 or 12 new clients just online, and 2 or 3 of them were the girls that came across were good friends, and they all worked with one coach. And you know, I think they were, I don't really ask, but I think, you know, they were obviously maybe not happy one way or another. And they both came across, and the coach started abusing me in my DMs. And he's like, "You're stealing my clients." I'm like, "Dude, I didn't even know who these girls trained with. I don't know anything about, like, I've never met you before. Like, I don't, you know." And it's like, yeah. And he went on and he made an Instagram post, and he's, you know, bad mouthing me, and then he blocked me and blocked all the girls that he was training.
You wouldn't have been able to sleep for weeks.
Oh my God. And it's just crazy, right? And it's like, it's something that is like, nowadays I like look at it and I'm like, was I like that when I was younger? And I was like, maybe a little bit. But I don't think I was ever that bad. But then like, if I have a client that's like, "Hey, I think I want to go train with this person." It's like, if they're going to get, if they have like a better relationship with that person, or they can get more buy-in, or they have more trust in that person, that's cool. Like, you know, they can, as long as the client is getting, you know, a good service and they're achieving their results and they're enjoying the process, like, fucking great. But yeah, it is. It's so funny, and it happens so much. Like, and
you sort of get it as well. I mean, I had it when I started my chiropractic, and I started it straight out of uni. And I was like the only one in my year to do that. And you know, you start and you're like, I've got no idea about business. I've got no money, and I might have been a good new grad, but I'm shit. You know, and you do take things. I didn't care. I've always had that mindset. I've only cared about what I'm doing. I don't let other people, whether they're doing good or bad, influence me at all. I don't care about that sort of stuff. But you do, like, I remember in clients when you first start a practice or business, and you start, they're coming in because you don't have many clients, so you just full, like, you know, you got the excitement. They're all like, it's all new, and then someone doesn't come in anymore, and you just, I remember it used to look like a punch in the liver, and you just go, fuck, man, what happened? How did I do this wrong? And the over analysis and all that sort of kicks in when you are insecure and you're starting. And so many of these PTs, you get it, like they're starting up, they don't have the runs on the board, they don't have the clients, they don't have the expertise. They probably should have a bit of insecurity about where they're at, but the process is to focus on yourself, you know, just being better. It's like, you know, outcome versus process driven. But over time, once you do, I think there's that shift that happens that you don't need clients anymore. And when you have that shift that you don't need them, you know, there's a point where you have to have them because you got bills to pay. And when you get to a level where you're pretty good and you're like, I don't need people and that shift happens, and you actually attract more clients.
It's true, yeah.
Because it's so much of there's this underlying desperation, and, you know, PTs have it, health professionals have it, everyone has it when they're starting. But once you get to a level, you start to get more secure with yourself. You're in a better position. You're just like, I'm here. I'm confident in what I do. Yeah. I'm here to support you. If not, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. And then people always have this, oh, shit, okay. Yeah. Or I'll take what you recommend, and you just go, for fuck's sake. Yeah. You know, it's that willingness to, like, go, well, the door's there, and people go, all right, great.
Yeah. And I think there's a huge buy-in part, like a social proof part of that, right? Because generally, to get to that point, you have to do good work. Mm-hmm. And I think if you do good work, then you've got reputation, I guess, but also you'll have the proof of results. You may have a lot of good referrals and things like that because you've done really well with clients. And I think
evidence to yourself that you are that person as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes down to that. But yeah, I think it's insane. Like, I get that with like a lot of the newer coaches, but like, you'll get this from people that have been around a long time too. Like there's coaches that have been around longer than me that, yeah, you just hear such and such, and you know, it's like
they're fixed with how they approach. There's just a fixed mindset. They get stuck at, You know, and that's in my industry as well. Other industries, they might have been around for a while. They get to a certain point, and then they don't really develop themselves and develop their skill set, and then the game changes. People change, and then they get upset when the game changes and the next generation comes through. It's like, if the game changes, you've got to evolve with it.
Yeah.
You know, do what you need to do. If you're a 45-year-old dude, you don't know anything about social media, it's like, and you're okay at what you do, but then you're getting salty at all these other people are smoking. It's like, learn it.
Yeah.
Learn it. Or
I'm going through that right now.
Yeah.
We spoke about yeah, I'm going through that right now. Like, damn, I'm old as shit. Like, I'm still over here complaining about all this stuff. Yeah, that's me at the moment.
Once you nail it though.
Yeah. I think as well, right? Like, going back on that, it's like, you know, that whole thing with coaching and putting and I say this with athletes, especially bodybuilders, all the time. This is something I drive on social media, is like, your placing or your title or what you do is not who you are. And you know, it's like, if you have like I said to athletes, if you don't win, you're not a loser, right? You just didn't win particular bodybuilding comp, but you know, it's one small step in a whole thing. Like, if you get up and keep going and get better, you're winning, right? And I think it's a similar sort of mindset with coaches, where it's like, you know, if their identity gets attached to, you know, if my client leaves and goes to a different coach, then you know, it's like, oh, that's a shot at my identity. Yeah. Somebody else is better than me. And it's like, no, it's like, you know, I have some great clients that I coached for a long period of time that we just didn't click personality wise, and you know, they go somewhere else, and that's cool. But you know, it's just, you know, what I know, that what I do I can get results, and I know that I can get results with multiple demographics. But then I also am 100% understanding that, you know, I have specific personality types that I just don't really work that well with. And, you know, we can get along great, but we just don't, like, I struggle to build rapport and buy-in with them, and they may go somewhere, and it's like, you know, that's not a reflection to me. And I now look at it in the way that it's like, that's not a reflection of me as a coach. There just might be somebody that can get results for them, but also have better rapport with them and stuff like that, and that's fine. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's something that, you know, can be a little bit hard in the fitness industry. Like, there's issues that can arise, and that does happen. And I think if you ask any coach that's been coaching for a while, they'll be able to tell you 5 stories on that. Like, every single coach. So yeah, but it's just interesting. But I think, you know, it's one thing that, as you get more experienced and you get older, you start to mature a little bit, and you start learning a little bit more about, you know, the psychology of people. And you know, it is, like you said, you get more secure in your job, and it's okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And they got to accept the messenger before they accept the message.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a great phrase. That might be on my Instagram post. I'll have to quote you on that. Can I get you? Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I got you.
I'll put some paid ads behind that. Some clout.
That's great. Yeah.
In terms of take it back to a more like a positive view with green flags. So, if someone's a general pop person looking at a coach, what are some green flags that you see coaches do? You're like, if people see coaches doing this on social media, that's statistically probably going to be someone they should work with.
I'll give you 2 things, and it's going to be a very textbook answer, but I can go through each one for you that I do believe is people that are empathetic, people that are authentic. Those are the 2 things that I generally look at in coaching. So empathetic is obviously just being able to put yourself in their shoes. And I think, like, if someone's looking for a coach, I think if you can relate to what they say, that's generally going to be a really big green flag. Like, a lot of coaches that can talk about, you know, they can make their marketing, or when you speak to them, it's very relatable. Like, it's like, okay, these people understand my problems. And I think that's one side of the coin, but the other side of the coin is also authenticity, right? Because there's a lot of coaches that can put on a mask and they know what to say. And it'll be like, you know, oh yeah, I know moms are busy with their kids, and they'll put up a post, and it's like, but I think, you know, and this one's really hard to describe, but there's a level of authenticity that you need to have that shows that, you know, you're real about it. And I think it might be a skill to develop when you look at it, but like, I look on social media a lot, and you can tell, like, when people are posting things, it looks like it's straight out of a textbook, and it's like they're saying that because they know that's what they have to say, versus they know like that's in their own language, and you can just kind of tell. Which is one thing I think, which is why my social media has done so well, is because, you know, I a lot of the messages I say are the same as everybody else, but I'm able to make them a little bit more relatable. I speak in my own language. You know, if I fuck up spelling, I'm not going to stress out and go change it. You know, I'll make it like a dodgy little story that I share over to the post, and it's just got a little bit more element of my own personality, and I think that creates a little bit more buy-in. So like, when I'm looking at a lot of the coaches online, like if I have mentor clients for coaches, I always try to drive them to speak in their own voice rather than make it look like it's come straight, like it's come straight out of a textbook, like you know, because it looks like AI wrote it, right? But not saying it did, but it's just that's kind of the message. So I think like and generally from my own personal belief, like when I'm seeing people on social media doing coaching advertising or marketing, the ones that are more authentic, I'm personally way more drawn to. So I think a really big green flag for coaches is those two things. And obviously social proof is there. So, you know, if they're able to get results with your demographic of people, if they have good retention with their clients, obviously I think is another really important one, because it's very easy to put somebody on 800 calories and get a transformation photo and then, you know, see you later.
Revisit them in 8 months. And
which sadly, actually not as much as it used to, but I think it still does happen a little bit. Where I used to be like, oh, you know, results are everything. And it's like, you know, now we're looking at retention, right? And it's like, I want to see the growth of that client. Yeah, that client got lean in 8 weeks or 12 weeks, which is fine. But what do they look like 6 months later? Are they still improving? Is their mindset shifted? You know, stuff like that. So, those are the sort of things that I think are massive green flags on coaches.
How swayed do you think people get by going towards a coach, whether it's male or female, who's in phenomenal shape, but their fundamentals of being a coach aren't particularly good, versus someone who's in average shape? You know what I mean? Because someone like, oh, well, this guy's obviously, or this woman, they know what they're doing because like they practice what they preach. They're in phenomenal shape, versus someone who's, you know, a coach is in decent shape, but they've really got the acumen. They've worked with a lot of people, and to not get swayed by what their coach looks like.
I think beginners you generally see can be swayed a little bit more on what people look like. It's definitely a huge factor, and I think there's an element of it. Like I would never go to a fat coach. I shouldn't say that word, but like somebody that looks like they don't practice what they preach, to some level. They don't have to be the best in shape person, but yeah, I think it does happen quite a lot. But like the more I look at it, and this is actually interesting you say that, because I was looking at this a few weeks ago, and I was talking to one of my mentors about this, and most of the people that are in great shape that do really well in terms of the coaching scene online are absolutely fucking phenomenal communicators, right? So I know some coaches that are in great shape that really struggle to get clients, but I think their communication skills maybe aren't quite as good. So I think it's like, it's an addition to, and I don't think it obviously there's a huge difference between training yourself and training other people. But I think if you get somebody that's in average shape, like slightly above average shape, but they look, or they have a lot of social proof, I think a lot of people will tend to more so go with them than the person that's in shape. Like I feel like that's such a big thing now that it's kind of like some like people that have been training a little while kind of catch on to it. But yeah, I think like the good communicators with marketing tend to do well regardless of how they look. And I think if you have social proof, that's the gas on the fire. So like I know with myself, right? Like I coach a lot of bodybuilders, and I'm like, I'm not going to say I'm in bad shape, but I'm definitely don't look like a bodybuilder, right? I've done amazing. You know, I've never stepped on a bodybuilding stage yet. I've probably put more people on stage in Perth than, there'd be maybe me and a handful of people that have put, that amount of people on stage. So I think the social proof of results is more important, and people do buy onto that. But yeah, there's definitely a big element of people that are, this person looks like this, or this person's won a show, so I'm going to go to them. But it's usually beginners. And usually they find out pretty quick.
Yeah. And even, I mean, there's bodybuilding competitors, and then there's fitness influencers.
Oh, yeah.
And then, for example, if you get these girls that've got 1 million followers, 500,000 followers, couple million followers, and then they start developing a coaching business, do you find that's fraught with a bit of danger?
For some, yeah. You're just playing a marketing game there. I think the thing with that, though, right, is there's 9 times out of 10, their retention sucks.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
And like the way a lot of them model is they get a lot of clients from around the world. A lot of them don't talk, so they probably all have somewhat of a bad experience, but they can't communicate with
it's just a volume game.
Yeah, it is, and it's just a volume game. But I think the retention on those is pretty bad. And I always think in 2 ways this, right? Because I'm like, one side of me is like, yeah, but it's not good because they're just, they actually don't know what they're doing. They're not qualified at coaching, yada, yada. But then I look on the other side and I'm like, generally their retention is poor. And that sort of educates them, hey, look, maybe just because this person looks like this doesn't mean they're going to be a great coach. And they've had that firsthand experience. Because I get a lot of clients that come through Physique Code that have gone down that path of going with an influencer sort of thing. And, we'll set up a really basic structure for them. And they're, oh my goodness, the details in this is absolutely phenomenal and crazy. And then my buy-in actually goes up, right?
So they're doing you a favor.
Yeah. And like, so I'm in 2 ways about it, right? Because I do think the people that go down that road generally don't go down that road for a long period of time. So,
and for some, it might actually get them in to the space of doing exercise.
Yeah, that's and this is where I changed my mind on the 8 and 12 week challenges, right? So like if you were to ask me 3 years ago about, oh, we're doing a 12-week challenge or an 8-week challenge or a 4-week challenge, I'd be like, what the fuck are they doing? They're just going to diet them into the ground and blah, blah, blah. Like I still agree with that because that's usually what they do. But also it's like, if that's what it takes to get them into the fitness industry, great, amazing, right? They'll learn and they'll move on to the next stage. And that just could be part of their learning process for getting into being more active. So I used to like completely write those things off, but I think I was just looking solely at a results point of view rather than getting people into the industry. So yeah, it's exactly what you're saying there. Like it can get them in.
With a lot of these people as well, I find and you might get it with you because you've got status online, or whether someone's a fitness influencer and they've got social.
Did you just call me a fitness influencer?
I did. No.
Damn. Shit. All right.
I'll take it. That's
right.
Yeah. So in terms of, you got some credibility.
Okay.
You got decent following.
There's some influence. Yeah.
Yeah. So you do have, you definitely got credibility in terms of status online as well.
Influence.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of influence, you can have fitness influencers, all these sort of people, and I find there's a fairly decent demographic of people. They're just seeking novelty, and whether that's with coaches, exercises, whatever they're doing, they can't actually stick to one person and find one person and actually stick to a process.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with people who need novelty?
Well, my whole theory with coaching, like I went through a phase where I was like, all right, everything's got to be like quote unquote optimal and stuff like that. My training programming now is all about give them a little bit of what they want and then more of what they need. So what I've worked out is like, I had some people that are like fuck, if they really want to do bicep curls on a Bosu ball, like I know that's probably not the best exercise.
I feel attacked.
What's that?
I feel attacked.
Yeah. But like if there's that, then I may add it in because that's going to create adherence. So there is a place for the novelty, 100%. I think it's like you can't just write things off because in theory it's bad. Like we're dealing with people, and 80% of our job is psychology. So like for me, it's like, okay, we may not get adherence on the most structured, like perfect on paper program, but is it really a great program if they're not adherent to it? So it's like, there are some people that like the novelty, and if that's the case, then add it in, right? Yeah. But then also give them the things that they need too. Like it's the same thing, like people will immediately write off certain exercises in training But then when it comes to the diet, they're like, oh yeah, I need good adherence, and they really like candy bars, so I'm going to factor in 1 candy bar a day around it. So like they'll do it with the nutrition, but when it comes to training, it's a polar opposite thing, right?
Definitely.
So yeah, there is like, you know, you definitely do want to put novelty in, if that's what's going to keep them adherent. So
while still adhering to your fundamental principles, like 80-20 of whatever you're doing.
Yeah, it could be 80% of the program is, you know, the nuts and bolts that they need to improve. And then, you know, they're excited to go to the gym because they get to fucking do bicep curls on a Bosu ball. You know what I mean? It's like, you just got to, you know, work out what works for that person. You know, I have programs that I do with clients even now where they get bored every single week. And before I would have been like, you know, oh, you got to make sure you're doing this. It has to be, but like nowadays I might be like, all right, so we're going to train 4 days a week. The first 2 exercises are always going to be the same. And they're the ones we're going to work on progressing. So they're the ones that I'm measuring. And then the last 2 exercises are going to be, all right, I'll give you 3 choices. Fuck around and have some fun. Pick which one you want. Just, you can do them differently every week. They're still exercising. They still get to do what they want to do. But I'm also still tracking those first 2 like meat and potato exercises every single week, and it's just meeting them where they're at. So there's definitely room for it, I think, but also you know, I think it's when you get so like one-eyed about
your process,
all the nuances and stuff like that, like this is the best way to do it, don't do anything any other way. And I've been there, I've been guilty of it, I'm sure you have as well. But yeah, and it just comes down to like, you know, just giving them what they want to keep them adherent, but then also, you know, adding in the meat and potatoes or the workouts that are going to be the ones that, you know, the Bosu ball bicep curls aren't going to be the thing that's building their body, but it's getting them into the gym so that I can give them the other things to build their body. So I think, you know, there's room for it, whereas previously I would have completely written it off.
Yeah.
But, you know,
it's almost a form of empathy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Essentially. Yeah. There's a principle one of my coaches from years ago taught me, and this really helped me with the process of like retention. It's almost the 20-60-20. So 20% of clients, no matter what you do, even if you're shit, they'll stay home with you. 60% of clients it depends. That's where it depends on your skill set, your processes, your communication, your empathy, social proof, all those sort of variables. And the other 20% will leave you no matter what. You could be 10 out of 10, the most amazing coach, amazing practitioner, whatever, they're going to go. So that helped me, especially early on in my career, knowing that, you know, you're not going to get everyone. You're going to have a demographic. They're excited. They come in. They'll be the ones that do want novelty. Oh, come and do Richard's program and this and that. And then they'll be like, whatever you do, they're out the door.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do to win those people. And if your retention's 20%, you're pretty shit as well, because you're always getting the people that no matter what, they're just going to follow you. So I guess, yeah, it's always focusing on that 60, willing to know that there's going to be some people, no matter what you do, be at peace, they're going to leave, you know, and that can help with people's insecurity. But that middle 60%, that's where, you know, the skills and all that sort of stuff and the actual business and the results, that's where that's
built. A great way of looking at it too. And, you know, if your processes and skills and service are really good and you're on the 75 to 80%, you know, you're doing well. You're going to have a pretty successful career.
To be fair, if you have 50% retention with people over 12 months, 18 months a year, you're phenomenal in our sort of respective industries.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you're dealing with things that they're exciting in the beginning, novelty, people getting results, they're getting better, motivation's high, then they hit that sticking point. You know, then things, the results they start plateauing. And to go to the next level of results, it's compoundingly more difficult to get. It might be 3, 4, 5 times harder to get just this marginal improvement as well. And for people to understand that process of that's when you get to that point, that's what it is.
You
know, and you've gone from, you know, being down there to up here. You're not getting better, or you're not, you know, just getting shit results. It's like there's that initial progress when people start anything. It's going to be exciting, but just dealing with that process of as your motivation drops and you're not seeing as many improvements, that's where process driven and enjoying that and creating a bit of novelty in that process.
That's where, in my eyes, good coaching starts coming in.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's where you start learning how to take people from being outcome driven to process driven.
It's like a relationship. It's honeymoon period. everything's all good. Then once that goes, then it's
Well,
like,
coaching is a relationship,
Yeah.
right? Effectively, it is actually very similar. I mean, obviously, some people make it more similar than it should be, but yeah, like there's a sorry, but yeah, there's a a lot of the same principles.
when one thing I've always thought's interesting is like the unhealthy attachment to fitness and training. How do you delineate? I mean, we did a post. I can't remember exactly what the wording was. How do you delineate what's the difference between someone who's like real healthily training hard, they're tracking, they're getting results, and they're pushing, they're grinding, versus someone who has an unhealthy attachment to fitness?
Yeah, is that the one about weighing yourself?
No.
Is that the one? No.
No.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Look, I think
it might have even been having an identity.
Yeah.
attached
And that's,
to-
that's where I was
yeah.
going to go with that. Is like, because I actually did a post on one of my most popular posts actually was about like weighing yourself every day is data, and it's great to do. But if you're letting it dictate your mood for the day, then that's a whole other story. And I think this is where we start looking at crossing like scopes of practice, right? Because like as coaches, we have a specific element we can help people with, but I think there's also where it crosses a line where there's probably better professionals that are going to be able to help them a little bit more. So, I can't speak too much on the crossing the line, but like for me, it's like for a lot of people, it's when people start identifying their personality as, I am a bikini model. I am a bodybuilder. That's when we start seeing issues.
And they've achieved a certain level of
Yeah. And then
aesthetic result.
they're attaching their self-worth to that, right? And then that's when we start seeing, man, I could go down a rabbit hole with this. Like that's when we start seeing like the connections to social media, like how many likes I'm getting on a post is, if I don't want to gain any weight in an off season because I don't get as much traction on social media, and things like that. And I think, when we start looking at that, that's a really hard situation to deal with. I tend to give some slight, not really advice on it, but I try to keep things in the mindset of your sport is not who you are. And when I say sport, this can also be general population people, and just exercise in general is not who you are. So like I may have people, I may chat to them and say, okay, so who are you as a person versus what you do? And then just sometimes if they write it down, it can help them process it in their own mind a little bit differently. But then I think, there's a very large demographic of people that the issue goes further. And if that's the case, I have a performance psychologist that I do quite a lot of mentoring with, and she's absolutely phenomenal. And I have no issues sort of, either asking her for advice or pushing a client to go and see them. But from what I do, it's like I try to separate what they do versus who they are. And generally the people that sort of lose track and they start putting themselves in like, I am a fitness model, I am a, whatever the case might be, just helping them visualize and realize that and be like, oh yeah, look, I'm just I am a good person, that, I'm a mother or a father or whatever it is, versus I love to exercise.
Yeah.
And
someone who enjoys training. I'm someone who values,
Yeah.
it's back to the build the body you love.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm like really big on outsourcing. Like when I say outsourcing, I mean like, saying, okay, I recognize that I probably don't have the psychological ability to deal with this, but there's people that do, and I would much rather them go there because that's what's going to help the athlete the most. It's the same thing with rehab, right? Like there's a lot of people that, a lot of coaches you do have to put on many hats. But I think like the hats for psychology would be like, be empathetic, be authentic, know when to tell them they need to pull their head in versus it's okay, right? That's about as far as it goes. I think if we're starting to delve further than that,
Getting outside your scope.
Yeah, get outside help, because like, you know, it's the same thing. And again, same thing in rehab. It's like coaches going, oh, you got a knee issue. I know these 3 exercises, they're going to help it. And it's like, fuck, man. Like, you know, there's people that went to uni for 5 years that actually know what they're doing. They're going to fix this. Might be better for the athlete if you send them to them. Maybe they can write a program, send them back, and then you guys can collaborate and work, and the client will get the best results possible. Whereas, you know, when it comes down to the mindset thing, you know, it's the exact same situation where it should be, you know, if it gets too much, outsource it. If you start noticing serious red flags, you know, outsource it. You know, red flags like that could be, you know, their mood is heavily dictated on whether they had the ability to eat their own food, whether they had the ability to, you know, gain 200 grams in a day, and then their entire mood is just cooked for the whole day. You know,
they
those sort of things.
They start regressing after a holiday season. They've put on 5 kilos, and their whole self-worth is wrapped up in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Process.
Yeah.
Or if they go to Europe and put on 12 kilos in 4 weeks.
I know a guy that did that. I'll introduce you to him. He's sitting right across the table from me.
But he pulled his shit together over 12 weeks, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's that, I guess that it's funny because there's your self-worth and your attachment. I mean, there's having this unhealthy attachment to being like in real good shape. But then there's also an element that sometimes you go, look, I've dropped the ball, I'm a fat fucking head, put my head in. Yeah. And I think that's just calling you for what you are. But yeah. And the thing is, when you're playing that game of like, you got to be shredded, you got to look like an animal, or whether it's, I see a lot of guys in MMA fighting and anything that's attached to like physical peak performance. It's like there's a very short shelf life.
Yeah.
It's not like even being attached to anything is not good. If you're an unbelievable business operator, you can do that shit when you're 75, 80.
Yeah.
You can't be like a world champion, well, very low likelihood in your 40s as like a fighter, or, you know what I mean? There's these things. And then if someone's too attached to being that, they're the guys, whether it's in fighting or bodybuilding, they stay there for too long, and then they start engaging in abuse of steroids, all these other things, whatever. They engage in all these things to get an edge, which then has this compounding detrimental effect. Or as you said, they start, you know, creating this persona and character online, and then this overcompensation starts kicking in, and their mental health is just
it goes to shit.
It's a wrap. How do you deal with sabotage with clients, general pop clients, in terms of how that shows up? How do you find that shows up in
terms of self-sabotage? Yeah, I think that comes in multiple ways. I think probably one of the most common ways it comes in is the all or nothing mentality. You see you laughing over there. Is the all or nothing mentality. And it's like, you know, I will be, we'll be able to have a good conversation about this. You know, and they may have 3 weeks where they are doing everything perfect, but it's not sustainable for them. And then they go off the rails, and then just everything goes to shit, right? So that's generally the most common thing that you'll see. And I think from a coach's point of view, one of the things that I maybe didn't do at the start that I do now is like going back to what I said was the red flag about people coming in and they're like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna, you know, you just tell me everything I need to do and I'll be robotic and do it. And, you know, and like I kind of previously, like you said as well, you're like, oh, this is going to be a great client, right? And the reason that I see that as a red flag now is because I'm like, all right, they're not going to keep doing, like if that was their motivation the whole time, they wouldn't be here, right? Or they would be an elite athlete already. You know, like that was sustainable for them, but they're not, and so this is an issue. One of the most powerful questions you can ask in an initial consult for them is like when they say that, say, all right, what's the most sustainable, like what's the least amount of times that you're able to train in a week? Like if everything went wrong, how many days would you be able to train? And they'll be like, oh, definitely 3. It's like, cool, this is where we're starting. And I'll try to not run so much on their motivation because I know it's not going to be long lasting. And then I might start them on 3 days a week, right? And then say, all right, so we're only going to train 3 days a week. We'll give you things to do outside of the gym, which are, you know, if they don't do, it's not going to make or break them. But then rather than use that motivation and put it into that 100-point tracker, right? And then say, cool, because it's much more sustainable to drink the amount of water that you need in the day than it is making sure you're doing an hour of weight training and then some cardio and then stuff like that, right? So
developing wins.
yeah. So
Yeah.
for me, that's what I look at in terms of the self-sabotage, like as the most common one, is just working out what's sustainable, like realistically, and just by talking to them and communicating to them. And then once I work that out, then I'm going to be like, all right, cool. That's where we're going to start. We're going to start at the lowest hanging fruit, because I know, in terms of like weight training and food, because I know we can only build on that. Whereas before, it's like if you hit the ground at like 100 miles an hour, you got nowhere to go, kind of thing. So that's what I sort of tend to look at with those people, with that type of personality, which has had, it's not always the most successful way, but it's always going to be really context dependent. But for me, that's always been a really good way to try to, have an entry level that I can build on top of. And like, you'll get some people, and I just have to say this because it's also quite common, is like, you'll get some people that'll be like, oh yeah, it's, but I want to train 7 days. I need to do 7 days. And that's when you're going to go, cool. All right, I'll build a 3 days you have to do. I'll put an extra one in if you don't have anything to do when you want to do it. On the outside of the gym, these are the things that I really want you to focus on. And then, then it just becomes a lot more, we're getting the 3 in that we need to get in. If they don't do it, they're still getting wins because they're doing everything that we've told them to do. Yeah. Funny story on the side of that, though. I actually tried to do that with one person a few years ago, and they're a good friend of mine now, so I can say this. And I said, you need to drink 3 liters of water a day. And this dude would drink 3 liters of water before like 10 a.m. because he was so motivated to get it. He just wanted to win the sheet, and it would be before 10 o'clock in the morning every day. And he'd be messaging back, can I have more than 3 liters of water? And it's like, fucking hell. But like,
just keep it under 4 or 5.
Yeah. It's like, just you don't have to drink it all before 9. It's like, steps, get 10,000 steps a day. It's like, he's got the 100 points before 10 o'clock in the morning. Good for activity, but again, right, it's not going to sustain. So, spreading it out over the day, and just education.
Absolutely. I think you mentioned a few really good points in terms of you have other things that you're working on and some base level minimum wins. Because I'm a very high drive, high output, very tough on myself person, and I'm very addictive personality because I'm so hard on myself. I can, in the past, I've been prone to sabotage and different things. And I'd have such a high expectation of what I want to achieve. Then if I didn't achieve it, then the wheels will come off. Yeah. If you don't, for me, fitness, training was never an issue. Training was easy. For me, it was nutrition. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember.
So for me, it's like, with your clients, do you find it's more the training drops off, the nutrition, or their lifestyle factors? In terms of what's the thing that you find
that goes first?
Yeah.
Nutrition.
Yeah, I feel that.
Nutrition and lifestyle. I think everybody's different though, right? Like, I have some people that are just so pedantic and good with nutrition that their focus kind of goes straight into that. Because like, you remember, and this is something else that's changed, right? But like, you remember how back in the day it was like, it's 80% diet, 20% training, which is, if you want to grow any substantial amount of muscle, it's going to be, 50, whatever it is. Yeah. But then there's so many people that get so driven into one of the pillars, like you said, the 3-legged chair, right? Like, if we're talking training, diet, lifestyle, they'll get so driven into one that the other 2 just kind of get neglected. More often than not, it starts with nutrition, then it goes to lifestyle, which is like steps and things like that, and sleep, and then that affects training. But yeah, it is, that's why coming back to it and saying like the sustainability and finding the bare minimum markers and then building upwards from that is so important, because it's like, 9 times out of 10, those sort of high strung people, like you were saying, like, and I can use you for an example here, is like, you had said to me, I can train more. It's like, I know you're gonna train more, right? But if I have 4 days set for you and you do 6, but then the next week you only do 4, you've still done what I've said, right? And it's like, for nutrition, and it's like, if you diet a little bit harder than I'd want you to, but then you go back to, maybe that only lasts a week, but then you have bare minimums of like food choices and stuff, right? Like, you're still getting wins. And I think that's just so important for coaches and athletes to realize is just setting, meet them where they are and then build upon it rather than ride off their motivation and have to drop down. Because, you'll know better than anyone. Like if you set a really high bar for yourself and realize you can't achieve it, like going, oh yeah, maybe I'll go down one level. Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah. So it's
because it serves you to a point in your life, like having that very high bar, driving and just going so hard with different things, like and being being tough on yourself. But then there's a point where it doesn't serve you. Yeah. And you almost lack self-compassion, which I find for me, like I'm starting now to understand self-compassion. Sometimes people, they don't have enough accountability. So I've always had high accountability with what I've done. Yeah. I've had very low compassion as well. So like for me, it's having that self-compassion to know that, if you did, fuck up and didn't, for me, normally training's pretty good. Like, as you know, it's more the nutrition side, or if you just get crazy busy with work and you're just ordering Uber Eats because you haven't got time to prep something and the wheels start falling off the bus, just not being able to go, oh shit, it's all right. You've been doing like 70-hour weeks, 80-hour weeks, whatever it is. You're working through some projects. You're still going to the gym. You're still doing you still did 4 workouts. You didn't go to jiu-jitsu this week. It's like, you're not a piece of shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's being able to work through that and still have a bit of compassion and going, all right, you do work hard. You do have a lot going on. You can't be achieving everything all the time. Yeah. And just don't dip off too much. Yeah. And just get back on the bus and make sure you're still doing some fundamental things, that your sleep's all right, still getting steps in, still doing some weights. It's like you haven't completely dropped the ball. So
one of the guys, like he's a good friend of mine, but one of my, I guess, mentors, Angus Bradley, would always use something called he uses this in saying like vertical integration, which is like, he'll use it in training programming, but then I think the more we looked at it, he was like, this serves better for Gen Pop for lifestyle. And it might be like, all right, the top is going to be where we spend the most amount of time. Like, so if it's training and like you want to go, all right, I want to work on power or hypertrophy, that's going to make up the majority of the program, but I'm also going to keep a few things in there for hypertrophy, for flexibility, whatever it is. And we're never not doing anything, but we're just prioritizing one, and then we just kind of order the priorities. And it's like, that's the exact same thing as what you're saying there, right? Where it's like, if you want to, like, in a training program, if you want to maximize everything, you won't. You'll end up worse than before. Whereas if you're trying to, if you're going, okay, this is the most important thing for me right now, maximize it, still do everything else, but we're just going to accept that it's on a lower level. And then it's like, okay, now my work weeks for the next 3 weeks aren't quite as busy. All right, work's going to go down to level 3. Training's now going up to level 1. And then it's like, cool, that's going to be my main focus now. And again, that's one of those things I think it's really important for, just using a fucking whiteboard and just writing like my most important priorities this month. And it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can kind of list where it's at, whether it's work, training, nutrition, whatever it is. So that's a really good point that you bring that up.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll go through a few quotes that you've put on your page, which I quite like. So one of them is, one of the coolest things about becoming a coach is you start off really simple, because all you know, then you learn a bunch of fancy training techniques and exercises, only to realize the basic stuff with progressive overload and above average communication to get buy-in and motivation was the secret sauce the whole time.
I like that.
Why do coaches overcomplicate things?
A couple of reasons. First one, and when I say this, it won't sound great, but I was in this position a lot of the time. Insecurity, I think, is a big one. So I think, it's like trying to show off what you know rather than give the client what they need is a huge one. And I think I still see a lot of coaches like that now. And I was definitely a victim to that for a long period of time, longer than I'd like to admit. The second one, which I think is less talked about, is boredom, right? And I don't think it's boredom on the clients. I think it's boredom on the coaches, right? So it's like you learn something, you get excited about it, you want to put it in, and you want to so that was a big one for me as well. Like I was like, oh my God, I'm just, when I'm doing one-on-one sessions, I'm just doing the same shit, right, with these people, and I'm getting bored. And it's like,
Self-serving.
Yeah, which is like, fuck me, like, what am I doing? You know, and then going back and then just being like, all right, this stuff earlier wasn't working, but it wasn't the exercises. Like, the exercises were great. It was me getting bored, them, whatever it might be. And it's like, the reason they didn't like it maybe is because I wasn't communicating the importance of it, or I wasn't goal setting with these exercises, which is the biggest one. I wasn't goal setting with these exercises, and they were just going through the motions and getting fucking bored, right? So like, I'll be nowadays, if it's like, all right, you got 40 kilos on the squat. Next week, we want to get 42 and a half, or we want to try to get the same weight, but we want to try to go a little bit lower, and just goal setting so that when they're going in, they've got something that they want to work towards. And I think maybe previously I wasn't great at that, but I think, you know, that's what I mean by like building the buy-in with them, and, you know, communication is like going back to goal setting. And it's like, you know, if they're motivated to achieve something session by session, and they have a goal, they know what they're trying to achieve, you don't need fancy shit, right? But if you're not good at that, you're going to need to constantly change things around for that excitement of the workout. And I think, you know, younger coaches have a tendency to do that, where they go, oh, I need to change things because they're getting bored, or we're not progressing, or, you know, whatever it is. Whereas for us, for what I've learned now, is it's going to be a lot more of, goal set for them, get them excited about what they're doing, and then you're going to see way more progress than what you would if you were trying to just, you know, throw random shit at them to try to show them how smart you are, rather than actually try to help them.
Definitely. And like another thing, like it's a branch of on top of what you're saying, is if you're seeing a lot of clients as well, a lot of people, they forget, it's like, even though you might be talking about the same things all the time, for the client it's new.
Yeah.
You know, because you're talking about fundamentals there, because you should be talking about fundamentals to everyone all the time, and that can be boring, but it's about the client.
Yeah.
And you got to embrace the fact that not everything's always going to have all this stimulation and excitement, and there's going to be, you know, whether you're a chiro, PT, whatever you're doing, you're a martial arts coach, whatever, you know, instructor, whatever it is, it's going to be the fundamentals of the fundamentals.
Yeah.
And you got to focus on the fundamentals, and everyone, you got to keep communicating that, and and not having that self-serving, oh shit, I'm bored shitless of talking about the same stuff all the time. I want to mix it up for me. It's like, it's not about you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about the client as well. Another good quote. I like this one. 3 traits of elite athletes.
Yeah.
Number 1, they always worry they're not doing enough. Number 2, they're measured, composed. They never get too high, never get too low. I like that one. And number 3, this is probably the big one, great at delayed gratification.
Yep. That, I think, to this day is that's the second most shit. That one had about 3,000 shares, that post, actually. Like, that was one of the ones I didn't think was going to go as crazy as it did. So that was really cool.
I really resonate with that in terms of business as well. Like it's that's why I think it probably did well. So it's a lot of the application of it's so relevant in terms of, you know, you always feel like, fuck, someone who really works hard and then they're growing and pushing, they always think, I'm not doing enough.
Yeah.
You know, if anyone starts going, oh no, I'm cool, it's not applicable to them. And also delayed gratification is a big one. And being not too high or too low. I think that's very important as well, because if you're just like this emotional seesaw, it's just like, that's going to dictate how you make decisions. And I think, you know, if things are good, if things go a bit to shit, it's like, you know, that things over time, if you're competent at what you do, they're going to level out. The final one, 3 traits of an elite coach. Empathy, which we've spoken about. Number 2, solid on outcome goals but flexible in the process. And number 3, break down complex terms and make them easy to understand.
I agree with all 3 of those too. So I think, you know, what was the first one?
Empathy.
Yeah, well, we've spoken a ton on empathy today. And the second one was
folks, solid in outcome goals but flexible in the process, which we've talked about.
Yep.
But probably the other one is breaking down complex terms and making them easy to understand.
Oh yeah,
that's something that, do you follow Huberman? Andrew Huberman?
No, I don't.
No. So I find he's really good at that in terms of with his channel, and when he goes into, he's a Stanford professor in neuroscience. So basically, he goes into a whole range of other things in the health space. And someone who's really, I find someone who's friggin' a gun at what they do can break down something incredibly complicated just so that a basic person can understand.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who suffer from overcompensation, insecurity, they're the opposite. They'll start thinking, I'm going to use as much jargon as I can to confuse this person. They think, fuck, this guy's smart.
Yep.
But you don't get buy-in. If you're not relatable and people don't understand, you just don't get buy-in.
Yep, absolutely. I think that one's really common in the fitness industry. And I think as well, coming back, like, you know, people that did year 9 and 10 English and they're like, oh, school didn't, you know, and it's like language techniques. And I bang on about this so much now, is like language techniques that you learned in high school is literally one of the most important things that you're ever going to use in personal training. And I think one thing that I didn't even realize I was quite good at, but then the more I'm sort of go through social media or just, you know, listening to other coaches that talk to me, is like, and one common theme that I get from a lot of coaches in mentoring sessions is like my ability to not only break something down to something simple and just give them what they need currently out of it and then layer more later. But also when you listen to people and you find out things that they like and things that they're good with, being able to use analogies that relate to what they do. Like the amount of times, like we'll talk about, like one that I may use a lot is like, you know, most people that I train drive a car. And it's like, you know, the whole falling off the wagon for a day and, you know, oh, what do I do? Because I went so over my food on the weekend and now I'm going to restrict it and heaps. And it's like, look, it's like, so, you know, when you drive a car, right, and it swerves and it starts going off the road right, you don't swerve it all the way left, because then you're just going to end up going, like, you just pull it back to the center, and that's the best way to keep it going. And then they'll be like, oh, okay. And it's like just things like that, right? Like, you know,
relatable.
Just being like, you know, finding, you can be relatable with them to you, but also when you understand things that they like and they do and like commonalities, and then you can relate more complex things to, you know, more complex issues or situations to an analogy that they completely understand, like that'll stick with them forever, right? And I think things like that is another reason that makes really, really good coaches. And I think when I put up that post, that was a little bit about, you know, sort of that analogy. And then the one before that, the never elite getting athletes. Too high and getting too low one. Yeah. That was elite athletes, wasn't it? Yeah. But like that one as well was like, you know, I was working with a basketball team. The coach had a rule that like you can celebrate or be sad about a game for 12 hours and then move on, win or lose. That's all there is to it. Definitely. And it was like, fuck, that's amazing.
It
right?
is, yeah.
So simple and amazing. So yeah, that's what actually.
And a lot of people who do incredibly well, they're like that. They're very measured.
Yeah.
They're completely measured and they're process driven.
Yeah.
What's the most ridiculous thing you've seen in the gym?
Oh, you know, it was actually me, right? So I don't know if it's ridiculous, but like I was cleaning treadmills. There's a video of this, and only 2 people have it, and I'll make sure I need to give them an NDA to get rid of it. I was cleaning treadmills when I was working at Plus Fitness in Melville. And you have to turn the treadmills on to clean them, so that like the cleaner runs through. And I had 2 of them on, and there was like 12 treadmills in a row, and I forgot I had them on, and I was walking across to clean them, and it was on like 20K an hour. And I walked so the treadmills were like set up this way, and I walked across them, and I like just casually was on my phone, and I walked onto a treadmill like with 1 foot going 20K an hour, and I almost flipped, like, and it was bad.
You know, you could have put them on like 2Ks an hour.
Yeah, but it cleans fine. All or nothing, right? But yeah,
that'd take you too long.
Yeah. So I did that. So that was kind of ridiculous.
What about on the stage? What's the most ridiculous thing you've seen backstage?
Backstage or on stage?
Both.
On stage, it's not ridiculous, and I feel really bad saying this, but it's like it's a memorable moment for not a good thing, but. It's not, I don't know how ridiculous it is. Like I've seen a girl posing and her bikini broke. And basically, you know, it's kind of sad actually. But yeah.
Memorable.
Hey, it was, memorable. Yeah, it's not something you see. Like you'll sometimes see, doesn't happen too often, but somebody will like do their big stage walk and walk out and it just gone. But you never like to see that, right? Because they've worked so hard for it, but memorable.
Who was the bodybuilder that fell off the stage?
That's happened a few times.
Hey, this year? They're like in the pros. Wasn't that guy? He just walked straight off the stage. Yeah.
I'll be honest. I don't watch a lot of. This is a whole other topic, but I don't watch a lot of pro bodybuilding. I work with my clients, and outside of that, like if it doesn't have something to do with me, like or my clients, I'll watch wrestling or basketball instead.
Phones in the gym. Do you reckon they should be banned?
No.
Do you think it's a problem? Do you think
Can be.
Yeah.
It's a hard one, right? Because like programming should be on your phones now, because paper, if you're experienced, paper is fine. But for a lot of the clientele we deal with, having the videos of technique, points of cueing, having things on there that say what they did the week before, and just ease of use, I think is a really good thing. I think if you're going on there and the plane's in airplane mode and you're just writing things in and using Spotify to listen to music, great. But on the other end of the scale, right? Like you got people that are spending, literally updating Instagram, sitting on a busy gym for 12 minutes.
Which I'd say would be the majority.
Which does happen pretty frequently.
What about people that set up cameras?
Oh my God.
For content?
You wanted a rant, you're going to get one. I'm at the point now where if there's a camera set up, I don't give a fuck. I will walk straight through it. Like at no point should I get why they do it.
Would you ever tip it over?
Nah.
Not yet.
Maybe mentally. But I don't think I'd actually do it. Mentally, I might, yeah. But yeah, and like I do understand with online coaching, filming technique is great for coaches to be able to help you. And I do understand all those things. But at the same time, I've had issues in my gym where someone has set up the camera filming and there's been somebody training in the background that just doesn't want to be on the video, which is weird. Like I think that's something that, you can't just film somebody randomly, right? Like that's illegal. But it happens so regularly in the gym, and most people aren't going to care, but there are people that get mad when they're in the background of somebody else's video or any of those things. So I think there are issues with it. I think it can be good if done maybe the right way. But yeah, my issue is people that just like set up the cameras and get mad at people if they walk in front of it, or they start clogging up the gym, making other people have to wait to exercise so that they can film themselves. I have clients sometimes that they'll train in a gym and then they'll be like, I couldn't do this exercise because somebody was filming content on it. And it's like, oh my God. And that drives me nuts. But I think, before I would have just said, get rid of the fucking phones in the gym. But there are benefits to having them in there. And I do understand why some people are, maybe filming for coaches but like, for me, it's like, just go at a non-busy time where it's not going to affect people. And if there are people in the background, you need to tell them if it's going on social media. Because like I've had 5 or 6 instances in my gym with different people, and people saying, I'm going to walk out, like not at the gym, but I'm not going to do this exercise because that person's filming. And I don't think that's ever right. No,
definitely not. Finally, I just want to take this back to something you were talking about a bit before.
Yep.
Pro wrestling.
Yep.
I've been seeing of late, you've been
dabbing
in a bit of wrestling.
I have. Jazzy and I have, yeah.
What got you into it?
So Jazzy and I have been wrestling fans for a long time, right? Like I watch wresling every week. I watch Raw, SmackDown, AEW, everything. Like I always watch it. Still? Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. You'll have to fight me to miss that. And yeah, like I have zero experience in martial arts. I have zero experience in gymnastics. I have, no experience whatsoever. I absolutely fucking love it. And somebody that had started following me on Instagram was actually like one of the head wrestling coaches and used to be in the WWE. And he was messaging me and I was chatting to him and stuff. And like, I opened his page up and I'm like, dude, are you a pro wrestler? And he's like, yeah, I have been for 18 years. And I'm like, oh man, that's so cool. I was asking a bunch of questions. And he's like, why don't you come down and you guys can come down and I'll give you a session and, your if all else fails, you can see what it's like. And I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's do it. So we went down and did it. And dude, it was the best fun ever. Like, it hurts, but it's like an adrenaline rush, and it's super cool. So like, we were looking at it and we're like, all right. And it also is giving us a new appreciation of watching it on TV. Like, before you'd watch it just for the storylines and stuff, and now like I'm watching it and I'm like, fuck, that would hurt. Oh my God, that's crazy. Like, these guys are insane. And like, we've been doing it for a while now and progressing in it, and it's so much fun. So, and it makes me, like, on the emotional side of it, because I'm 35 at the moment, and I've never really done anything like that outside of like basketball or training gym. I can't play basketball like I used to play. Like, it's just, it's fine. It is what it is.
Fair jumper on you though.
Yeah, but I can't run, or I get blown by guys and
just park you in the corner.
Yeah, the Clay Thompson, 35 points for 6 dribbles. I can't play, and I can't compete in it because people have things to do, and the major leagues, you got to be, like, I can't play in those leagues anymore. So this actually makes me feel really capable. And this is something I was explaining to someone the other day. And like, people are like, oh, it's fake. And it's like, nah, it's scripted. But it's crazy, the shit that you have to do. And I'm doing things right now, and we'll talk about being process versus outcome orientated. While I would be 100% open to doing a show. And people are saying, are you to do a match? And I'm like, if I can get to the level I can do a match, I will sell out that stadium with the fitness industry.
Is there anyone you're calling out?
Nah, not yet. Let me get a little
Just a cheer?
No, we're going to do it together. Oh, you're doing we're going to be attacking. Oh, yeah.
We're going to another couple.
Yeah, we'll find it. Yeah. We'll get our own theme music and pyro when we come out, everything. Yeah. No. Like,
what workout song would you play?
If we... we were talking about this the other day.
And you're going to pick whether it's yours or Jazzy's?
No, we come out together. We'll have like one of them. Yeah, one of those. But yeah, so like, I'm so process driven with this that like, they're like, would you ever do a match? I'm like, fuck yeah, I'd do a match. That'd be amazing fun. We went and watched it last night. It was like incredible. But then like, it's just making me feel more capable. Like, I'm doing things that I would always go, man, I can't do that shit, right? Like, doing flips and like getting certain height on and getting hit in certain ways, and I'm like, my back would never take that. And I'm doing things right now and I'm like, dude, this is making me feel so much more capable of my own body than I realized. And I'm just absolutely like, both of us are just loving, like, each week just getting a little bit better and learning something new and being like, oh yeah, shit, that was heaps of fun. So like, we're going to dedicate ourselves to a full year to it, and see where we can get to. And if the wrestling coaches are at the point where they think like, yeah, you could do a showcase match, we're in.
Sure.
But like, again, for pro wrestling, I've always been a huge fan of it. But in terms of actually doing it, like, it's helping me mentally. It's helping me be the general population client as well. Like, sure. Jazzy and I were saying this, we're like, we don't know anything, right? Like, if I get a coach in personal training, I know a lot of shit. I can follow what they say, but I also know why they're saying everything and whatnot. Like, we're walking into this like a Gen Pop person would be walking into my coaching knowing nothing. And it's cool to be like, get excited over a little progression, or, seeing the coach be really excited for us and high-fiving us when we get things. And I'm like, I'm also learning like from my own coaching and being like, cool, I know how the coach made me feel when he was celebrating what we did. Fuck, I need to be more like that with my clients. So like, there's just so many aspects that it's helping with me. So
it's good to be a white belt again in anything.
Yeah. See, I don't even know I know the black belt's like the good one. White belt's the first one.
Like a beginner. White belt's beginner. Yeah.
This is how much I don't know about all this stuff.
And it's also that mentality of being a white belt in anything, whether someone goes into business or they're learning branding, or they're, you could be black belt, whatever, like someone who's unbelievable at some endeavor. And then it's something cool, I find, especially like when you've got to a good level at something, and then you've got to a level where the excitement's probably not quite there, and then you start something new, and there's a lot of growth in it. There's a lot of excitement. Your shit, and it's going to take ages to get better. And if you are process driven, like, it's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm also at that point now where I'm realizing, like, you're just saying that with the point, and it's like, okay, now everything that I'm learning is hurting, right? Like, this hurts. Like, there's no way around it. Like, now I'm getting real mad when people are like, that's fake. And I'm like, fuck off. Like, Do you know how much this shit actually hurts? Like, it's scripted. It's not fake. But
it's a rough. The WWE guys, man.
Oh
their bodies are completely fucked. These guys die young for a reason, man.
It's like every time you hit the mat, it's like whiplash. Like, I can't explain it. Like, it's like literally.
Imagine being like 130 kilos.
Yeah, and it's just like you hit the mat. It's so loud, and it's just like whiplash every single time down, which is obviously something I never thought I'd be able to do 8 weeks ago, right? Yeah. And I'm doing it now, and I'm like, all right, sweet, I'm getting good at this.
It's amazing how adaptable you can be.
Yeah. So I'm learning, like, physically and mentally, like, for my own coaching, my own physical capabilities. Plus, I just fucking love it. So this is something that Jazzy and I both have zero experience in. So I think it's one of the few things that, like, sports that because we wanted to do something outside of the gym together, and it's one of the few things that I think both of us came into with absolutely zero experience. Like, we were like toying with like different sports and stuff like that, but this one's just so far out of our comfort zones that it's been really good being able to do it together.
And when that time comes that you do your first show, I'll be there.
You know what? I'm
going to bring a lot of people as well.
You know what though? Like, Jazzy and I were saying this last night, because they would have had 600 to 800 people at the show last night. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, like
something so. In Perth, I've never even heard about it.
And speaking of that, the one thing I will also say that I don't know how good this is, but this is really helping me, because I know we were talking before about like social comparison. Everything I've ever done, I've been around elite athletes. In that, like basketball, coaching basketball athletes, I coach elite professional athletes, right? I always have that social comparison. Bodybuilders, body composition, I always have that social comparison, and I'm never like, I can help them get better, but I'm never as good as them, right? The one thing that I've noticed for me is like, I have zero social comparison with pro wrestling. I don't, outside of the wrestling coach and the people that we've met at the wrestling gym, I don't know a single person that does this. I have nobody to compare it to. So like, and I want to keep it that way because I don't want to get into that, everybody does where we get into that comparison, but I think that's also what's helping me be really process driven is like, I'm able to go, I have nothing to compare this to. As long as I'm getting better for me. Yeah, I don't give a fuck. As long as I'm getting better for me, like, I could be 8 weeks in and somebody could learn all that in 1 week, but I don't know. So I don't care. So it's just like, on all accounts, it's been amazing. And I think when we do have that show, they do it at talking into it now. When we do have that show, they do it at like the really small wrestling show place. Already? Yeah. Oh, don't trust me.
You're only 3 weeks.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna be the best. So like, do you know how wrestling works with like a baby face and a heel? You heard of those terms before?
Baby face. Like good cop, bad cop.
Yeah. So every match has like a good guy and a bad guy.
Yeah.
Right. So like the whole crowd cheers for the good guy and the whole crowd boos the bad guy. I think I will be one of the most incredible heels.
Okay.
So I'm gonna come out, and my goal was to get booed as bad as I can.
If you're gonna be the good guy, I'd be disappointed.
I would have to come out, and there's no way, like, I cause too much controversy to come out and be a good guy. Like, I can't do that.
It'd be on brand.
Yeah. So it's more authentic, right? If I come out as a heel. But yeah, so we were laughing about it because they do the showcases in this tiny little gym. It fits like 50 people, and I was saying it to him, and I'm like, there is not a chance in hell that if we ever got to a point that we could do a showcase match, that we could hold it in this venue, because there would be 500 people in the fitness industry that would turn up to watch Jazzy and I do that. Like 100%. It's like, you would have to hold this at the bigger venue.
Yeah.
I hope it gets to that point, right? Because that would just be so much fun, and it would be good for the sport too. Like, absolutely. It would be cool to get the fitness industry, because I think a lot more people would love it if
exposure.
Yeah, if they didn't just go, oh, this is fake. Like, if they actually saw like the theatrics of it and the entertainment of it, I think more people would be like, fuck yeah, I'll give this a shot.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you for coming. We got to go and hit some good points, particularly coaching, clients, nuance. So where can people find you?
So I've got 2 Instagram accounts. So our company page is @PhysiqueCode, real straightforward, and my personal page, where it's basically just a diary of my random thoughts. It's me journaling, which is where a lot of the quotes you'd said for today is Richard_PhysiqueCode. So they're the 2 best places.
And your coaching program online?
Oh, the subscriptions
is a really good. I found that's a really good way just to dip your toes in the water and still be able to, at a very low cost, get access to your knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a men's and women's subscription program. which is basically 4 workouts per week. The men's one is more upper body focused, and the women's one is more legs, glutes, shoulders, and back, so like the hourglass shape. And I go through and I update the programs every single week, and it's got a group Q&A chat in there, and all the exercises have videos and things like that. So it's like $30 a month. So it's a really good price that if you're just struggling with a bit of training motivation, if you jump onto either my Instagram or the Physique Code's Instagram, and then just hit the link in the bio, and it'll take you right there. It'll have numerous amounts of information in more detail on what it involves. And if you're looking at doing it, send me a DM, and I can also give you some more information on it.
Brilliant. Look forward to seeing you in your pro wrestling career.
Yeah.
Thank you. The heel.
Cheers, appreciate it. Thank you.